Alright everybody, I hope you're ready because the story of Blackest Night is about to hit a major milestone. But first, we need to discuss what I think is one of the most unique miniseries tying into this event. Just a reminder, this is part 3 of a 7-part video series where I cover the main Blackest Night miniseries and all of its most relevant tie-ins. So if you're interested in following along with my coverage of this event, I recommend watching the first 2 parts before continuing with this one. That being said, let's get into it. Blackest Night Superman numbers 1 to 3, written by James Robinson with pencils by Eddie Barrows and Alan Goldman, inks by Rui Jose and Julio Ferreira, colors by Rod Reese, and letters by Steve Wands. Something I really love about this miniseries, which is pretty unique among Blackest Night tie-ins, is the way it feels like reading a horror comic or even watching an old horror movie. The focus is on the town of Smallville, as we get brief glimpses into lives that feel full and familiar, as peaceful people go about their everyday routine, chatting with their neighbors, stirring up some innocent drama, all of which is lit by the warm glow of the setting sun. Little do they know that death is coming to Smallville, and even the survivors may have their most precious relationships changed forever. As night falls and the Black Lanterns descend upon the town, we get to see something very different from all prior attacks. People are picked off one by one in their homes and offices, in diners and at the drive-in. Each time, a moment of total mundane normalcy is shattered by an inescapable, unstoppable, unseen force. And that last bit is incredibly important to the tone of this story. The Black Lanterns do not appear in full view until halfway into the first issue, when they finally come face to face with the heroes. Until that point, they remain off-panel, with all of the focus being given to the victims who struggle to understand what's happening to them before being betrayed by their own fear. The Black Lanterns aren't just harvesting this town, they're terrorizing it. And everything about the way these first 10 pages are executed feeds into that sense of terror and dread. A very good trick is how the slowly rising percentage meter of the Black Rings is tracking how many lives are being snuffed out by the Black Lanterns. We know from previous issues that 1 life equals 0.01%. So when the sheriff is killed and we see the percentage is 3.44%, not only is it horrific because we now know how many people have died at the hands of the Black Lantern so far, but it also sets up what's about to happen as we transition to the next scene. The deputy draws his gun and calls out for the sheriff. We see through the eyes of a Black Lantern that the deputy is filled with fear. And then as the scene transitions, the percentage rises from 3.44 to 3.45 as the deputy's heart is harvested. And for the next few pages, those rapidly rising percentages are used as a way to imply massive bloodshed without having to actually show a single panel of gore. It's a great trick, and it reminds me a lot of how during the Sinestro Corps War, all they had to do was show us lantern rings flying around in search of new users, and that was a simple way to imply massive casualties without having to get too explicit with depictions of violence. Don't worry though, there will be plenty of violence coming. Both Clark and Connor Kent are visiting Ma on the farm when they realize something's wrong. They trace the disturbance to the cemetery, and are horrified to see the Black Lantern version of the Superman of Earth 2 digging up Pa Kent's grave. Now, throughout the entire rest of this miniseries, Black Lantern Superman talks a lot about how he's getting ready to bring Pa Kent back as a Black Lantern. But he never makes a move to do it, and we never see any other Black Rings flying around Smallville, so I suspect this is all just a lie to get a rise out of Clark and Connor. As we already know, Black Lanterns need to make their targets feel intense emotion before harvesting them, and defiling a grave of a beloved family member is a pretty good start. It's worth mentioning that since this Black Lantern is the Earth 2 Superman, that means he's more powerful than our Superman, which becomes very apparent once Clark and Connor start fighting him. Any damage they inflict heals immediately, and at best they're only able to momentarily slow him down. You really get the sense that Black Lantern Superman could end this fight anytime he wants to, but is purposely drawing it out to make Clark and Connor more and more emotional, both by taunting them about their family members and by forcing the battle into the streets of Smallville, destroying a large chunk of the town. If that wasn't bad enough, the Psycho Pirate is also on the scene. He was killed by Black Adam during Infinite Crisis, and has returned as what really might be the most useful Black Lantern in the world. Psycho Pirate has a magical mask that lets him inflict emotion on other people. He tells you to be angry or afraid or in love, and then you just are. And now he roams the streets of Smallville, commanding everyone in sight to feel strong emotion, waiting for them to build up to the point when he can start harvesting them. It's pure chaos, as swarms of people are fighting each other in the street and looting and just going wild. Psycho Pirate and Earth 2 Superman aren't the only Black Lanterns attacking Smallville. Black Lantern Lois Lane of Earth 2 arrives at the Kent farm and is after Martha, who does her best to fight back against Lois by luring her into a field and then setting it on fire. Unfortunately, a Black Lantern's body is irrelevant as long as the ring survives, so the fire does nothing. Martha is ultimately saved by Krypto, who bites the ring hand off of Lois and flies away with it. And right here, we get a moment that I think is really important for understanding the nature of the Black Lanterns. Because the ring hand in Krypto's mouth regenerates into a full body. If it wasn't already clear before, this moment settles it. A Black Lantern's body is just a sort of construct that's generated by the ring. And damaging the body is mostly pointless. All that matters is whether or not the ring survives. Krypto manages to knock Black Lantern Lois into next week and is a very good boy, and Ma Kent seems to be safe for the time being. Unfortunately, things aren't going so well for her kids. Clark doesn't understand what a Black Lantern truly is, and thinks he's dealing with the real Earth 2 Superman, and is thus trying to appeal to an inner goodness that the Black Lantern does not have. Meanwhile, Psycho Pirate got to Connor, filling him with jealousy and rage, so that every feeling of inadequacy he's ever had as a clone that lives in the shadow of Superman would make him lash out against Clark with all his might. Throughout this entire miniseries, the ability of a Black Lantern to see the emotions of other people has been used to great effect to show us what this horrific night has been doing to Superman, Superboy, and the people of Smallville, and my favorite use of it comes when Clark finally begins to succumb to his injuries, as both Connor and Black Lantern Superman attack him together. Fully under the Psycho Pirate's influence, Connor is filled with fear, rage, and greed. But as he realizes what he's done, it all turns to fear, before his concern for Clark mixes in love with the fear. A desire for Clark to be okay adds hope to the mix, before his anger at Earth 2 Superman begins to take over. Now Superboy is fueled by a mix of fear, hope, and rage, as he lands the most devastating blow that Black Lantern Superman has suffered since the battle started. A pulse of tactile telekinesis rippling through the Black Lantern's entire body like a bomb going off inside of him. With Earth 2 Superman momentarily out of the fight and Clark recovered, Superboy steals Psycho Pirate's mask and uses it to free the townspeople. Instead of fear and rage, Connor makes them all feel hope and compassion before going off to confront Psycho Pirate himself. Then something really strange and interesting happens. Connor uses the mask on Black Lantern Superman, commanding him to feel emotion himself, which should be impossible, but the mask is literally magic. The Black Ring reacts violently to this, flying off of Earth 2 Superman's hand and shattering the mask. Black Lantern Superman's body falls lifelessly to the ground, his Black Ring inactive, as the sun finally rises. Clark and Connor realize that whatever's going on likely has something to do with the Guardians, and decide to go find a Green Lantern, but first they need to deal with the damage done to Smallville and its people. While all of that was happening on Earth, Supergirl was dealing with her own problems on New Krypton. This was during an era where the bottle city of Kandor was restored to normal size on another planet, meaning that the universe had a sizable Kryptonian population again, including Kara's mother Allura. It's been difficult for Clark and Kara to split their time between Earth and New Krypton, especially when Allura sees no reason for her daughter to care about a world she didn't grow up on, and it puts a strain on what should otherwise be a joyous event. Their people are back, Kara's mother is back, and then the Black Lantern version of Supergirl's father, Zor-El, arrives to complete the family reunion. Black Lantern Zor-El wastes no time in telling Kara what a disappointment she is, calling her a pathetic failure, even blaming her for his death. But to Kara's credit, she sees through the charade almost immediately. She knows this isn't her dad, but that doesn't make it hurt any less. So she hurts him right back, punching him so hard it destroys his head, burning him away with heat vision. But it's all for nothing. She can't beat him like this, and the longer the fight lasts, the angrier she gets, which plays right into the Black Lantern's hands. Meanwhile, Kryptonian scientists have figured out how to build a force field that repels the energy given off by Black Lanterns, and they only need to get Zor-El away from the planet before the force field can be activated. Alora jumps in to help her daughter, and the two of them strand the Black Lantern in space as the planetary shield goes up, protecting them and their entire world from the threat of the Black Lanterns. While the Superman family ensures the safety of Smallville and New Krypton, things are only getting worse as more and more Black Lanterns rise up across the Earth and the superhero community struggles to keep up. Blackest Night number 4 is written by Jeff Johns with pencils by Evan Hayes, inks by Eau Claire Albert and Joe Prado, colors by Alex Sinclair, and letters by Nick J. Napolitano. A tidal wave of Black Lanterns erupts from the villain morgue beneath the Hall of Justice. Mara, the Atom, and the Flash try their best to hold them back, but it's no use, especially after losing Firestorm. Jason Rush, the current Firestorm, is merged with the Black Lantern version of Ronnie Raymond's Firestorm, and is trying his best to wrestle control of the body, but it's no use. The heroes are forced to retreat, so Ray dials 911, shrinks them all down, and they escape through the phone line to the call center on the other end. The situation is escalating quickly all over the world. Lex Luthor, in an act that's true to his selfish, self-centered nature, responds to this crisis by barricading himself inside a bunker with state-of-the-art defenses. Lex couldn't care less about what happens to anyone else. All he knows is that the dead are rising, and he's killed a lot of people over the years. So Luthor is in full self-preservation mode, and to him, the rest of the world is irrelevant. Unlike Lex, the Scarecrow wishes he could care. Black Lantern Azrael is rampaging through Gotham, harvesting the fear from the hearts of everyone who lays eyes on him. But Scarecrow fears nothing. Years of overexposure to his own fear toxin has made Scarecrow unable to feel fear naturally, and when a Black Lantern looks at him, all it sees is an emotionless husk. Ironically, Scarecrow is the only person in the world who wishes he could feel emotion during a Black Lantern attack. The situation is getting desperate. Without Hal and the other Lanterns around to attack the Black Ring's weakness directly, the best the heroes can do is buy time. Barry takes off and runs all over the place rallying the troops, getting the rest of the superhero community up to speed, and encouraging anyone with light-based powers to try their best to weaken the Black Rings. Ray and Mara go to New York to find the JSA, in hopes that Alan Scott's Green Lantern ring will be as effective against the Black Lanterns as Hal and the Indigo Tribe were. Unfortunately, the power source of Alan Scott's magic ring has nothing at all to do with the emotional spectrum, so he can't permanently destroy Black Rings. He can do a ton of damage to large numbers of Black Lanterns at once, which is useful in delaying their advance, but it's not nearly enough. It's all the Justice Society can do to hold back the onslaught of Black Lantern Golden Age heroes, but things are looking bleak. The Atom and Mara do their best to inspire the other heroes to keep fighting, to keep believing that there's a way to overcome this. And it works. Ray steps up and delivers a speech that inspires a young JSA member named Damage to push past his fears and feel hope. But that inspirational hero moment came at the worst possible time, as the hope swelling in Damage's heart made him ripe for harvesting. His heart was taken by Black Lantern Jean Loring, Ray's wife, who ruined so many lives the day she killed Sue Dibney. Damage was the final heart the Black Lanterns needed. The power levels finally reach 100%, and a shockwave shoots through Barry Allen that shakes him to the core. He can feel it. Something is coming, and it may already be too late. In Coast City, Black Hand stands looking at his family's mortuary. The Black Central Battery teleports across space from the planet Riot in Sector 666 to the site of the mortuary, destroying the final thing connecting William Hand to his old life. The battery is suspended in the air by black rocks, as if a hand was reaching up from beneath the ground as it claws its way out of the grave. Around it are a swarm of black rings, buzzing like flies. Below the battery is Scar, who has imprisoned the other Guardians in a thick black tar. And below them all is Black Hand, who finally gives the order that will end everything. Nekron, rise. Slowly and calmly, a figure resembling a decaying Grim Reaper climbs out of the ground, and utters 3 terrible words. Coast City, rise. The swarm of black rings rain down on the cemetery below, and the 7 million people who died when Coast City was destroyed begin to emerge from the ground. Now, before we deal with all that, let's finish up with the Justice Society. Blackest Night JSA numbers 1 to 3 comes to us from almost entirely the same creative team as Blackest Night Superman, with the additions of Tony Bedard as co-writer, Marcos Mars and Eduardo Pansica helping with art, Luciana Del Negro, Eber Ferreira, Wayne Foucher, and Sandro Ribeiro contributing to the inks, and John J. Hill on letters. After attending to the people of Smallville, Clark and Connor brought the bodies of Black Lantern Superman and Psycho Pirate to Star Labs in New York City, where Mr. Terrific is studying them. He's attempting to build a weapon that can deactivate black rings, but it requires time they don't have and resources they can't spare, as the JSA is at war with Black Lanterns in the streets of Manhattan right outside the door. Mr. Terrific's plan is high risk, high reward, since creating a bomb that can permanently destroy Black Lanterns requires many of the JSA's most powerful members to stay out of the fight. Mr. Terrific needs Green Lantern, Stargirl, and Lightning to pool their powers into the device, while Dr. Fate uses his magic to stabilize all of these different energies. All the members left outside to deal with the horde of Black Lanterns are struggling. Jesse Chambers, aka Liberty Bell, aka Jessie Quick, feels personally responsible for what happened to Damage, since she was the one who convinced him to join the JSA in the first place. And to capitalize on her emotional turmoil, the Black Lantern version of her father, Johnny Quick, shows up to manipulate her further. Even though Jessie knows this isn't really him, part of her can't bear to reject the chance to run alongside her father one last time. It's probably for the best that Jessie left to deal with her dad, because Damage is back as a Black Lantern. He succeeds at emotionally manipulating the younger JSA members into letting him get close enough to Star Labs to blow the building wide open, making a clear path to where Mr. Terrific and the others are working. And who should come walking through that path but Black Lantern Lois Lane of Earth 2, fresh from her fight with Krypto in Smallville. All she wants is to reach the lifeless, ringless body of her husband, Black Lantern Superman of Earth 2. And when she gets close enough, she releases her black ring, sending it to him, reviving Black Lantern Superman, who stands ready to obliterate everything that Mr. Terrific has been building. The only person standing between Black Lantern Superman and the weapon that could finally end this fight is Power Girl. Talking with Earth 2 Lois and now confronting Earth 2 Superman has been a torturous experience for her, since she's also from Earth 2. Power Girl is the Supergirl of that universe, and the version of Superman and Lois that became Black Lanterns are her family. He's her older cousin, and they raised her like their own daughter when she had no one. And now Power Girl has to push through the memories flooding her mind, the hurtful words flowing from Black Lantern Superman's mouth, and the pain her whole body feels as she keeps fighting an opponent so much more powerful than she is. In the end, at the last possible second, Mr. Terrific finishes his weapon and sets it off. A massive pulse of white light radiates from Star Labs, destroying every black ring in its path. Mr. Terrific confirms that the shockwave has swept the entire tri-state area, so any Black Lanterns in New York, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania have been permanently dealt with. But conveniently, he can't build another one of those bombs, since the components were one of a kind. All the JSA can do now is regroup and go join the fight in Coast City. This miniseries is a weird one. The JSA felt scattered and unorganized, which I suppose is appropriate for the situation, but it didn't feel like we got to see the best of what this team had to offer. On one hand, I like the fact that the story of Blackest Night Superman got to continue and conclude in this book, but everything around it felt kind of off. With the exception of Power Girl, all of the JSA's most powerful members didn't do anything but stand in a room, all for the sake of building a pretty frustrating weapon. Mr. Terrific's reasoning as to why he thinks this experiment will work is really shaky, and then once it does work, it's impossible to reproduce because it requires unique, one-of-a-kind parts that were never shown or mentioned before. It feels really cheap, and it takes a lot of pages away from what could otherwise have been some really strong emotional storylines, like Power Girl and Jessie dealing with the return of their dead parents. What's funny is we just saw scientists magically whip up an invention that can repel Black Lanterns in the Supergirl portion of the Blackest Night Superman miniseries, but it was actually way more believable for a MacGuffin like that to come from a city full of alien super scientists who had been working entirely off-panel. And the fact that their MacGuffin was an invulnerable shield is a really good reason why this technology can't just solve all of Blackest Night. This just felt like Mr. Terrific pressed the win button to magically save the day, and can't do it again because of plot contrivance. My favorite thing this miniseries does is show us the process of the Black Rings downloading the memories of their targets, so that they'll be able to pretend to be the real person and manipulate their loved ones. It feels like every part of Blackest Night has contributed another piece to our understanding of how the Black Lanterns work, and I like that. It rewards you for reading more. And we'll continue to read more next time, in part 4 of this 7-part series, covering Green Lantern numbers 45 through 48. Where did Hal and the Indigos disappear to? Can they gather reinforcements before it's too late? Is there even anyone left who's willing to help? The darkness has been amassing its forces, but now it's time to gather the light, and you won't want to miss it. So subscribe to Mosaic Comics, ring that bell notification, and we'll continue this journey through the darkest depths of the Blackest Night together. Until then, thank you for taking the time to watch. My name is Dan, we'll talk again soon.